Hello, welcome everyone. It is 2 o'clock. Happy to have you all here for our virtual product review with Aura for the future of alarm response. I am happy to introduce Brandon Smith. Brandon has nearly 20 years in the security industry. He has built his career helping organizations strengthen security operations, improve response capabilities, and embrace innovative technologies. Today, Brandon works with monitoring centers, security providers, and technology partners to help shape the future of on-demand guard response. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Brandon.
All right. Thank you so much for the intro. Again, I thank everyone for attending today. And again, really what some things we're going to focus on today is kind of what the response gap is, what the future of response looks like, with the monitoring centers and all the way down to the dealers and the end user. And before we kind of jump really into it, I kind of want to give a little brief background on Aura. So Aura has been in the US for about 18 months. We've been building up our brand reputation. We've been building up our supply, like our security companies that are in the field, and really focusing on our customers that we currently have. But just because we're 18 months young in the US doesn't mean that, I would like to say, call it a startup. We have been around since 2017 when we were founded. Our founder, Warren Myers, started the company after his video monitoring company wasn't getting a response. Now, this was also in South Africa. That's where we were founded, and that's where we're still operating today. Our South African market is very driven on personal protection. So it's almost like rideshare for security, where if you feel unsafe, there's an app, you click it. We got about a 4 or 5 minute response time. Over 6,000 vehicles on the road, over 2 million end users. So very successful on the personal protection side. We raised some money in 2020, and then we went to the UK and Kenya. The UK, little bit different. It's very more similar to what we're doing here in the US, where we focus on like fixed locations. And it's been very successful. So with that being said, with the UK, they raised a couple more funding rounds, and we launched last year in the US. And we've had such a great 18 months so far. ISC West in 2025, we took home an innovation award. Just this past year at ESX, myself and our president actually participated after winning the innovation award in our category. We actually participated in like a Shark Tank style competition. We ended up not winning it, but what we did win from that was the People's Choice Awards, where the crowd at ESA voted, and Aura was voted as the winner of the Shark Tank for the People's Choice. So overall, it's been very successful. It's been very humbling, and it's been really great. And I want to thank TMA as well. Always been a huge supporter of Aura since we joined, from when we were a little baby company in the US, and now kind of grown. We have our legs underneath us, and always there for us. And I hope to see everyone next week at OpsTech, and then in a couple months at the annual. Our mission is simple, right? We want to be the #1 global emergency response platform. Now, in the US, we're a very triage service. We're alarm response. In other countries, we actually have like roadside, we have ambulatory as well, and we expect to expand that into the US eventually, but that is our mission. We want to be the fastest and the best at what we do. We actually have a metric that comes out internally every week where we call it lives saved. So we average probably 12 to 15 lives a week globally. And a lot of that's from our medical division, using our Always Safe Act in the other countries. So we really take pride in what we do, and the US is ever growing for us. So again, I thank you for attending today, and I'm going to kind of start talking about why, we exist. So when we kind of look at the monitoring centers today, we are looking at an industry. When I first joined and kind of learned more about the space, is not much has changed. right? So there's some things that have been changing very recently, but it was very kind of stagnant for quite a while. In the traditional model, your customer activates the alarm, your center receives it, they go through the call tree, they try and escalate if they need to. And this is kind of where the gap has been falling the last few years, is with the law enforcement. Every city, not is more and more cities are really coming to the idea of this verified dispatch. Good or bad, there's a reason for it, whether it's through legislation or just short staff, resource strains, et cetera. And this is kind of where that gap has really started to show itself. And that's where Aura really fits in, is we are that last mile. If you think of AVSO 1, like the level 3s and 4s, like that's where Aura really exists for your customers to get that verified response on scene. And if it needs to be escalated, there's a resource in the field that's now able to do that. What else are we seeing today within the monitoring centers? I know, and what I hear from our current customers is hiring and retention. And I know with some of the events I've been to, especially for the operators, a lot of focus and positive intervention has been put on the operators and their teams to like really boost morale and kind of mental health and all that. But there is still turnover there, right? We talked about the police restraints. Again, more and more markets are kind of moving to that verified response. And this is kind of where some of the new shifts have been coming, where the customer expectation, and I like using, we're in a technology age now where information is flowing and it flows quick and everyone likes immediate access to that information. And really, Aura also helps kind of fit this mold, because if your operator's calling, they're sitting on hold, trying to get through to an operator for dispatch, now your end user is waiting. Are they going to get a response? Are they not going to get a response? Information flow is key. And we know you guys have text messages, that go out, the email distributions that go out. That's great, but it also doesn't kind of show what that response looks like. So you're kind of learn throughout this process, especially through the demo, on kind of all the alerts that your team receives, the timeline of events through the dispatch of the security, guards in the field through the Aura network. And you'll really get a feel of the visibility that not only you, but your end users receive. That kind of gives them that little warm and fuzzy with the service and response. And of course, it kind of ties back to the police resource restraints, is the verification mandates. Again, more and more are turning. And there's an example from a couple of years ago, and I'm sure several of you can relate to. Seattle essentially gave a 3-week notice to the industry of kind of the changes with verified dispatches being a thing there. So not the last city to, I'm sure, to kind of put that type of restraint on. But even if you're in cities today and markets today where you're not feeling that effect yet, try and look ahead and think of the future of what can happen, and if it does, are you prepared, to make that shift? These are great. So I look at these, probably monthly throughout some of our major markets we operate in. And we look at what the current call times are for a lot of the PDs in the market. And, we talk a lot about PD, but I'll be honest with you, Aura in itself is also a huge advocate of law enforcement. In the UK, we've received a couple of awards from the police unions over there, and we're very tight knit. They love us because we're triaging their calls and not wasting what they consider wasting their time. Very good relationships on the public side, and we really hope to continue to develop that in the US. But the numbers are the numbers when we're looking at them. Now, these are all low priority calls, and they're all pulled from various legitimate resources, whether it's the city website or the PD's PR team, et cetera. But yeah, you can kind of look at these times and, they vary substantially, right? From as low as 39 minutes for a low priority, up to Seattle, almost 3 hours, depending. And our current customers, I mean, this is part of the reason why, they're signed up with Aura, because our average response time is about 18 minutes nationally. And there's some markets where us and PD get dispatched at the same time. Houston's a big one for us. And typically, we're beating Houston PD to most of those calls. And a lot of those calls would be considered low priority because that's kind of like where Aura fits into your current workflow. This is kind of the expectations, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but kind of dive a little deeper here of kind of what the expectations of your monitoring center, your dealers, if you have the dealer model, and now what your end users are expecting. Like, and we talked about the communication flow, the instant feedback, transparency and documentations. I have several customers that, part of the reason why they've switched over to Aura was, they can actually provide real nice instant reports that are nicely white labeled, with their center's information that flow to the dealer, that flow to the end user. Sometimes billing, especially if you're using it as an upcharge, becomes like hey, here's now proof and that the service was completed, and it's very transparent. There's no funny businesses, what I like to say, involved with it. Everything's time stamped, everything's geo marked. It's a really nice tool to provide to your end user and the information. And accountability kind of falls right in through it. Aura itself actually has 2 control centers, one in the UK and one in South Africa. And the reason for that is we take and we manage that response for your center. So your team can get that alarm, determine whether Aura needs to be dispatched. And if so, they click the button or they use our dispatch portal. They put the request through. And then once that's done, they can move on to the next alarm. They don't have to worry about, did someone show up? They can kind of watch it off to the side. Every center has a little bit different SOP on how they handle it. But at the end of the day, Aura is managing that guard response for you. So if there are any hiccups, we're not relying on your operator team to try and figure it out. Aura handles all of that. And then again, goes back to like proof, right? So proof comes out, this is what happened, here's some media attached to it. Like, these are the expectations that down to the end user of kind of what's being expected. And you don't always get that with kind of what's being used today with dispatch. And let's talk a little bit about what's kind of getting used today. So on-site guards, a lot of your centers, one of that first call tree is the call to that guard on site. That's great. Like I said, I was in the guarding industry for 20 years, static guarding on site, 1, very expensive. And 2, you never know where that officer is. Or do you have a landline? Do you have a cell phone with you? Are you calling and they're on a tour? Like, what is the chance that someone might not pick up and you have to now go down the call tree? Mobile patrols. It's kind of part of a little bit of what Aura does, but these are more static patrols, right? Hey, we're going to tour this parking lot every so often. That's how that typical guarding model works. It's great, but again, if something were to happen, where are they? If you're relying on one company, are they on the other side of the city? And that's where a lot of the challenges come when you try and build your own network or you're just using 1 or 2 companies. We'll kind of get at how Aura manages it, but that's one of the downfalls. And of course, virtual guarding. This is the new hip thing, and it's great. I think combining, remote guarding, virtual guarding with on-site guarding is definitely the future. I think, but now it comes down to what happens when the call downs don't work? What happens when, the visual deterrent doesn't work? I've been in the remote guarding space in my previous job, and I could tell you, people who are doing these types of activities on these sites are kind of getting used to like, oh, this guy's just talking to me, right? And does it work? Absolutely. Otherwise, you and your teams and your dealers wouldn't be selling the product. And I do think there is a need for it, and I think it's a great service. But what happens when they don't leave the property? And then you call for law enforcement, and they triage it, though it's verified. They're triaging it because there's no immediate threat to life or property. Now they're triaging it low, and maybe it's a couple hours now. Now, by the time they get there, the event's gone, right? So I think all of these still have a play in the protective industry. But where Aura really comes in is not only do we have the platform to dispatch the fastest available responder, Aura uses an aggregate network of security companies. So we don't just go to a market and say, hey, look, we have 2 companies right now in Dallas. We go to our monitor and say, hey, we're live, ready to go. That's not enough. The whole purpose and value proposition of Aura is we currently have over 100 guarding companies signed up for Aura across the country. And we won't tell you when a market is active unless we know our response times are going to be good, and we're shooting for under 30 minutes. Like I said, our average is around 18. We are using our technology, and there was an announcement a couple of weeks ago that we are now native with Google Maps, which is a big deal because Google had some really strict criterias on liabilities and who they offered the native integrations with. We were able to secure that through Google. So now our response times are even quicker because now we're getting true live traffic data. It just doesn't send the closest responder to the location. It takes in all of those metrics and traffic patterns, and it actually uses the algorithm then to dispatch the fastest responding officer. So again, we're kind of taking this model of aggregate security companies on our network, and then using our technology to be able to dispatch machine to machine from your monitoring center down to our officers' hands. Touch on some of this, kind of go over again. National average is 18 minutes. We're really shooting for under 20. Our SLAs that we provide, is 30. So we really strive to beat, whatever, we under promise and overachieve, right? That's really what we're looking to do here. And, we're always gradually bringing this number down as well. So great response times, especially when you're comparing it. And some things that I want to touch on as well is when I'm talking with new customers, sometimes there's some confusion. We're not a monitoring center. We're not competing with you. Our control centers are strictly there just to manage the response, so your team doesn't have to. We're not a replacement for law enforcement. We know our spot, and being in the industry for so long, I get asked the questions, well, what happens when your officer arrives? What do they do? Well, first thing, it really depends on what that state licensing and what they're allowed to do. Texas, they have different levels of officers, same thing with Nevada. So if you think about it at its most basic term, we're concierge, we're a triage service, and they're all licensed and insured security officers through actual security companies. And we're not here to replace law enforcement. That is definitely something I get asked, like, do you see this in the future? And the answer is absolutely not. And one of the big things is we don't ask you to change how you operate. We ask that you keep your current workflows. We all know training in a monitoring center is a big deal. There's compliance behind it. And we're not trying to really add additional stress to your current workflow. We have an open API. We like to integrate with some of the big one sheet of glass companies out there that you guys are using today. And if not, some of you are still, use our web portal for the dispatch. So a little bit of a change, but really not much training needing. You kind of see how self-explanatory it is when I do a demo here. But the idea is to really keep your process flow the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab out here. I'm going to go to our demo page. And what you're looking at here is a couple things I like to point out. On the right-hand side, this is the application that goes in our security officers that are in the field. This is the application they use to receive the call outs. So you'll get a nice view of kind of what their experience looks like. This is our current national map. It's a lot of cities we're currently in are in that verified dispatch cities. It's a little later right now during the day. A lot more calls come out overnight. But again, when I started with this company, 18 months ago, there was 2 dots on the map, me and our president, right? So we've spent the last 18 months building these markets to get the response times that are expected from our customers. So I'm in Dallas right now. So I'm going to zoom into the Dallas market. And I am downtown, so I'm going to leave that there for a second. Next piece is you're looking at our customer portal. So every customer we have has the ability to go in and check out all their call outs that they've done. This is all the metrics, the KPIs. This is where our QBRs come from when we're meeting with you every quarter. We look at the response times. We look at how long the officer is on site for. We pretty much can pull anything that you need, and we can customize this dashboard for you as well if there's something that's not showing today. We capture it all. We're a technology company, and we really focus on the analytics piece of it. Also within here, this is where your incident reports are housed. So we do a distribution list once an incident's complete, but at the same time, we have a database that you can go in and always pull any incident reports from your calls. Every call out will have one, so you can kind of take a look at those as well. And then we also on here is where our dispatch portal is. So if we don't have an integration, we come in here and this is how your operator would actually put a dispatch out. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and put a test call out for everyone to kind of see how it functions. If you're ever in Dallas, there is a nice taco place downtown called Twisted Trumpo. Just had lunch there today. Highly recommend it. So I'm going to go ahead, use this as a location. A few things are going to happen. I'm going to go over to our control center and own it before one of our operators do. And then you'll see my phone kind of giving me an alert that there's a call out happening and it wants me to accept. So I'm going to go ahead and log that. Come over here and let it hit our portal and own it. And as you can see very quickly, I've been identified as the closest responder to that location. I'm going to go ahead and accept that alarm. So I accept it.
South Austin Street.
And what's really great is if you heard kind of the interruption there, it gives turn-by-turn directions to the location. The officer within this app also
Head toward Main Street, then turn right onto Main Street.
Also has the ability to communicate with our SOC via text, which you can see if we were chat, we go back and forth. Everything's timestamped as well, so you'll kind of see this timeline make progress as we go through. The way the application works is when that officer gets about 10 meters from the location, it's going to auto-arrive them. Coming from the industry, and I harp on this a lot, we try and take some of the manual processes away so nothing's missed. And this is one of the automations that we have set, which is great, allows the officer not to have to worry about saying that they've arrived. It auto does it all based on the GPS data. So not driving down to the taco place, but I am going to manually arrive myself, and you'll see a couple of things happen here. You'll see the timeline update that I have arrived. And if I were on site, now it allows me to complete the tasks. Now, we do require task lists for every location. The reason why is your end user is paying for a service, and we want to make sure that we're not just showing up, peeking our head in and saying, yep, good to go, and then they leave, right? So there's a process to it. That officer should not leave until the tasks are completed. Let's say they show up though, and there is a active situation that is above what a security officer should be handling, right? Immediate threat to life or property. They can actually come in here and request police. It's going to notify the monitoring center. It's going to notify our control center, and it's also going to notify the police. And really why that's important is now there's 3 individuals contacting that jurisdiction, letting them know that there's an officer in distress, and now it's verified response. And from the limited amount of times we've had to use this, we do get very, very quick responses to that officer, even in very highly regulated cities, which is great. Our field teams love it as well. Just knowing that they kind of have like a guardian angel kind of looking over them. But there's a task list, so we kind of go back to. Again, we can customize these for you. We have templates as well. Maybe it's depending on what type of vertical it is. Is it a residential? Is it retail? Is it commercial, etc.? So I'm going to go ahead and complete this general task list that we have. You know, some things are required, some things are not. So media is optional for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and complete that out. Now for the second one, the notes optional, I'm going to go ahead and take a picture here. I'm just going to take my phone off the screen for just a second. And I'll give you everyone a nice view of the JFK Memorial, which is right behind me. Back. And as you can see, what's really nice about this whole thing, and I use this section to really highlight it, is when we have our own control center watching over the event, we can make corrections live. So for example, let's say this picture I just took is blurry. Instead of trying to correct it after the fact, after an incident report goes out and then people are looking at it and be like, oh man, that picture was not great, or there was a finger in the camera lens, our team sees this. So as things are progressing live, you and our control center see everything going on. So they can come in here, they can go ahead and look at the picture, etc. And if they see that, they can call, they can text and be like, hey, I need you to retake that picture. And then once that gets resoluted, they can actually feel confident while they were there, and your end users can feel confident that, you know, they're being watched over. They're trying to make sure their T's are crossed, their I's are dotted along the way, rather than trying to make corrections at the end or sending them back, which can be a nightmare sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and complete that list. Once that's completed, though, technically the officer's done, right? And once they complete the call out, they go back on duty, ready to accept any other call outs in the area. And as we kind of made our way through it, you can kind of see the updates as we did. Now, our team can't close it out until they add additional notes. And sometimes it's nothing, right? Sometimes they'll put spoke to the officer, no additional information. And sometimes there's things that the officer may have forgotten to mention in the report, or just things they had to type out. Our team will go in there, take the information that they give us, and we'll add it in. And then once that's finally complete, now they can conclude it. And then they go back to accepting and receiving calls from our current customers, and everyone's back to start. Also, something I'd like to highlight too is, again, within the customer portal, all of it's live as well. You notice the call out was there, it's now gone. But one real cool feature that we have is actually what we call scheduled services. And we see this getting used more and more every day. And it's really tied to static guarding. So the examples I like to use for your commercial customers, if they have a fire panel go down or a gate arm that maybe is not functioning, they can't get anyone out to fix it, and they need to provide a level of static or your traditional guarding, they can actually come in here, your dealers or the monitoring center, your team can come in here and put in those requests, right? So you can kind of see some of the examples. So if it's like a temporary guard doing a fire watch because the fire panel's down, or in a guard booth because one of the gate arms isn't functioning correctly or someone ran through it. Even on the residential side, we see this. We see this for, hey, I'm going on vacation. I had packages get delivered when I was gone. Can someone go move them? So we have officers pull up, get the garage code and put them in the garage, move it to the backyard, maybe under a different patio to get that package out of sight from porch pirates. And as simple as, hey, I forgot to close my garage door and they didn't have the Bluetooth or wireless capabilities to do so. Can someone go close my garage door or go check on it for me? So we get those times of requests as well. And all that can be scheduled right through the customer portal as well. I'm going to now kind of go back to the PowerPoint. We'll be taking questions here in a minute, but I wanted to highlight a few things before we do. Benefits. What's in it for me, the monitoring center? Additional RMR. It's another menu item. We have unlimited response model where you pay per address down to the end user a flat fee every month for responses. So you're not having to worry about, oh man, I only have this many responses this month, or I'm getting charged for each one, and it's now you're getting these variable invoices every month, so you can't really budget for it accurately. So we have an unlimited response model, flat fees, one for commercial, one for residential. And the idea behind it is, one, being able to retain customers, especially in those markets where they may not get a response on the lower tier calls, and two, it gives you just another menu item for you and your dealers to go down and be like a value add. So very, very lucrative. We've seen a lot of success in the field, not only with retention, but also adding RMR. And when you kind of put those two together, the distance between the two is even greater. So it's a win-win-win is kind of what I like to call it. And then speaking of win, it gives your dealers more capability. National monitoring centers. I know every market you're not really feeling the pressure in, but you do have those markets, and the dealers within those markets are feeling it. So may not be a priority today, as a whole, but you do have dealers in those markets that are feeling the pain, and it allows you to give them a resource to not feel that pain anymore. And the other piece of it is there's no operational overhead. We're managing the network, and you're not having to add any additional hardware. You're not adding any headcount. You're not trying to build your own guard network. We've seen a couple monitoring centers try it in the past, and hasn't really worked out too well. And that's another reason why we exist. We take that operational burden that it can create off of you, and we just give you a fast and easy solution for your customers. Just a couple takeaways right before we get to the questions. look through it. Look, we know response expectations are changing. Aura solves that. Verified response is becoming more of a standard. I mean, that's part of the reason why AVS-01 was, adopted through the TMA and being pushed. So there is a level of how do we still get a response? And we love it all. We very highly support AVS-01 and TMA, but more and more cities are now moving into that verified response, and there needs to be a solution for your customers. We're available now. So some of the questions we get is, where are you? Well, I can tell you confidently that we're in about 24 major markets right now, where I can say that we have more than, say, 4 or 5 different guarding companies where we feel confident in our response. And within cities we're not in, we have a full operations team dedicated to building out those markets. So we just asked 30 to 45 days of like, hey, I need to be in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm like, okay, great. Give me 45 days. We'll build out a new market and we'll get it rolling. So we adapt, and we the cities we're in today, where a lot of it was driven by our current customers. And now you're getting also a guard response with no hardware, right? That's the biggest piece and component. So the techs in the field aren't going to have to go repair something one day because it's not working. Everything's through the monitoring center. Everything's built in through an integration or using the dispatch platform. So no changes, no additional hardware, and it's a revenue line. It's not a cost. Do we have some customers that eat it in certain markets because they know they're going to retain customers? Absolutely. But I'll tell you, the majority of our monitoring centers, whether you're using a wholesale model or direct to consumer, are reselling it. And it's been pretty popular across the country, especially in those verified dispatch cities. With that, I want to thank everyone today. And I would like to kind of open up to any questions.
So thank you very much, Brandon. So if anybody has a question, if you could raise your hand, I'm happy to unmute you so you can ask a question. Okay, here you go. Vinay, give me 1 second. Go ahead.
Hey, Brandon, great presentation. Thank you. I wanted to ask, how is your presence on north side of the border, I guess, in Canada?
Yeah, so we're currently not in Canada at the moment. We have plans to move into that market. We were really focusing in the US right now to establish our footprint, and we know the relationship in the US to the Canadian side is very similar. Canada is on our roadmap. We're just not there today. But I would tell you that with our right partner, and if they have a ton of Canadian business, that would probably happen sooner than later.
Right. I'd like to get into discussion,
Sure.
To see how we can partner with you.
Absolutely.
And what we will do
Thank
is we will send, if you would like, forward your contact information to Brandon so that you two can connect.
Thank you. Yep, that'd be great.
Okay. Right. Does anyone else have a question? Be shy. I've met Brandon in person. He's a very nice person.
I appreciate that. Look, at the end of the day, sometimes people are uncomfortable putting a question in chat, or maybe it's proprietary to their own company. My information's here. There's a QR code there. Feel free to scan it. I make myself very available to any current and future customers. We really believe in like a white glove customer service atmosphere here at Aura. So we want to make sure you're getting the support. So yeah, please reach out with any questions, comments, concerns, and more than happy to meet with you and kind of take it from there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much for spending some time with us this afternoon at our virtual product review at TMA and with Aura.